Guten Abend, ladies and gentlemen, and my fellow trapped inhabitants of the Western Hemisphere. Welcome back to Outside Views, broadcast directly from the land of pre-sorted recycling, mandatory quiet hours after 10 in the evening, and trains that are late, but late with bureaucratic dignity. And I'm speaking to you from Germany, a country where our biggest political headline this week was a 2-hour debate on whether a municipal swimming pool in Westphalia should adjust its closing time by 15 minutes. And meanwhile, across the Atlantic, in that glorious, hyperactive reality show known as the United States of America, the grand political circus has reached a level of administrative performance art that leaves us humble European observers paralyzed between laughing ourselves to sleep and double-checking our emergency supplies. And if you have tuned into the news over the last 7 days, specifically between August 7th and August 14th in 2026, you know I have to film at some point and then publish later. But still, you know that Washington, D.C. has been operating at maximum velocity. And today we are unpacking a week packed with White House medical breakthroughs straight out of the Dark Ages, the official administrative erasure of the Arctic Ocean, a pillow mogul suffering a political existential crisis in Minnesota, and a Las Vegas casino billionaire begging the president to confess live on Air Force One that extraterrestrials are already among us. And let us begin in the nation's capital, where the current commander-in-grievance, Donald Trump, has decided that the modern medical establishment is far too burdened by tedious concepts like data, peer review, and germ theory. On Monday, the White House issued an official decree titled the Gold Standard Childhood Vaccine Recommendations. Now, in Germany, when the government issues a public health recommendation, it is drafted by 45 scientists in white lab coats who haven't smiled since 1994. In Washington, however, health policy is formulated with the scientific rigor of a late-night infomercial. Under this new executive guidance, the administration has officially ordered the nation to slash recommended routine childhood immunizations from 18 down to 11. Because, as everyone knows, aggressive viruses respect a strong negotiator. If you tell measles that you have already reached your 11-shot cap for the decade, measles simply turns around out of deep respect for your personal sovereignty. And to make matters even more thrilling, the administration is breaking up the combined MMR vaccine, measles, mumps, and rubella, into 3 separate individual injections. Think about the sheer administrative brilliance here. Instead of taking a child to the clinic once for a single quick jab, parents now get the absolute joy of dragging a screaming toddler back to the doctor 3 separate times. It is the software subscription model cleverly applied to pediatric pain. Naturally, the Director General of the World Health Organization went on television on Wednesday to express deep concern and gently remind the planet that vaccines do not, in fact, cause autism or turn human skin into refrigerator magnets. But what does the WHO know? They are based in Geneva, which is practically next door to Germany, and if there's one thing the White House hates, it is European consensus science interrupting a perfectly good anti-establishment narrative. Speaking of institutional science, let us check in on the environment, or rather the complete non-existence of the environment. On Thursday, August 13th, the administration achieved what environmental activists have been trying to accomplish for 40 years. They solved climate change. They did not do it by reducing carbon emissions or subsidizing solar panels. They solved it by banning the report that measures it. Brilliant. The National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration announced that for the first time since 2006, they will not be issuing their annual Arctic report card. The administration accused the government scientists of being controlled by extreme left operatives. You see a starving polar bear stranded on a shrinking piece of ice. The White House sees a paid agent of the Democratic National Committee trying to wreck the stock market. If a ship captain does not look at the iceberg is legally standing still. If we tried to solve problems in Germany by simply deleting official reports, our entire national railway crisis would vanish overnight. We would not fix the tracks. We would simply cancel the clock. And who had the privilege of explaining all of mandarings to the Washington press corps this week? Absolutely nobody, because on Wednesday night, White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt officially announced her departure. And you cannot really blame her. Being the spokesperson for this administration is not a public relations job. It is a high-stress endurance sport where your daily routine consists of standing in front of 60 hostile journalists and trying to explain why the president tweeted at 3 in the morning that whole milk is a deep state conspiracy. And she looked at the upcoming schedule of vaccine rewrites, Arctic report burnings, and constitutional lawsuits, and wisely decided to spend more time with her sanity. And this resignation arrived alongside another controversial executive measure aimed at restricting birthright citizenship and birth tourism, which the American Civil Liberties Union immediately challenged by pointing out that the 14th Amendment explicitly guarantees citizenship to anyone born on United States soil. The administration's legal counter-argument, as usual, seems to be that an executive pen moves faster than a 19th century constitutional clause. And now, let us turn our eyes away from the executive throne room and look at the loyal opposition and the broader political ecosystem. Because Tuesday, August 11th, was primary election night across several key states, including Connecticut, Vermont, Wisconsin, Minnesota, Alabama, and South Carolina. And if you think the ruling party is chaotic, watching the opposition try to decide whether it wants to be radical eco-socialist or sensible corporate accountants who occasionally wear rainbow pins is pure entertainment. Let us look at Minnesota, the land of 10,000 lakes and 10,000 internal political crises. In the Democratic Senate primary, progressive favorite Penny Flanagan scored a decisive victory, riding a wave of voter anger against federal immigration enforcement. But over on the Republican side, we witnessed pure comedic magic. Mike Lindell, the MyPillow mogul who successfully turned polyurethane foam into a high-stakes political identity, was running in the primary and suffered a devastating loss. And did he take his loss like a mature public servant? Did he give a graceful concession speech, thank his volunteers, and go back to selling oversized cotton sacks? Of course not. This is modern American political culture. You do not lose elections anymore, you simply get cheated. On Wednesday, Mike Lindell officially refused to concede, announcing that the vote tally was clearly fraudulent because there was simply no universe in which the fine citizens of Minnesota would choose a career politician over a man who guarantees 20% off a neck pillow with a special promo code. And he's currently demanding an investigation into the voting machines, presumably looking to see if the internal software was tampered with by radical leftist pillowcases. You really have to admire the absolute consistency. Losing an election by double digits is no longer a sign that voters rejected your platform. It's merely proof that the conspiracy goes deeper than anyone previously imagined. And meanwhile, next door in Wisconsin, the Democrats had their own family feud. Progressive favorite Francesca Hong was aimed to blow up the party establishment in the gubernatorial primary, and national commentators were ready to declare a massive progressive wave. However, moderate establishment candidate David Crowley pulled off an impressive upset victory, leaving the progressive wing to process their disappointment over overpriced coffee. So in Minnesota, the left prevailed. In Wisconsin, the center held. And nationwide, the opposition party continues its grand tradition of being entirely confused about what it actually stands for. Down in South Carolina, conservative voters gathered to select a nominee to fill the seat vacated by the late Senator Lindsey Graham, a man who spent 2 decades shifting his political position so rapidly he frequently broke the sound barrier. Replacing him is no simple task. The primary ended in a bitter deadlock between Darlene Graham and Congressman Ralph Norman, forcing a primary runoff. The political climate down there is currently so fiercely anti-establishment that candidates are effectively competing over who can hate the federal government more while actively applying for a federal paycheck. And it's like watching two firefighters compete for a promotion by seeing who can throw more gasoline onto the station roof. And if you think executive decrees and state primaries sound surreal, let us venture into the realm of local affairs and state-level legal drama, where the line between public policy and science fiction did not just blur this week. It was completely erased. Consider Nevada, where President Trump made a high-profile campaign stop in Las Vegas at the Red Rock Resort, delivering a speech focused on job creation and economic metrics. But behind the scenes, something truly magical occurred. Las Vegas real estate billionaire Robert Bigelow, a man who has spent hundreds of millions of dollars of his own personal fortune researching unidentified flying objects and paranormal activity, managed to pitch the president directly. And according to local media reports, Bigelow handed the administration a formal proposal regarding extraterrestrial disclosure. He did not merely ask for a standard press release. Bigelow suggested that the president should deliver the revelation live from Air Force One while cruising through American airspace. Imagine the scene of a national leader grabbing the aircraft microphone to inform the public that non-human entities have landed, that they are deeply impressed by trade tariffs, and that they are interested in commercial real estate on Mars. In Germany, if a billionaire tells a politician that he has been communicating with cosmic visitors, we do not add it to the presidential briefing. We call social services and arrange a quiet stay in a peaceful facility. In America, it's simply considered a solid Tuesday afternoon campaign pitch. And meanwhile, back in the federal court system, a judge on August 11th officially stepped in to block the White House attempt to use the United States Postal Service to restrict mail-in voting mechanisms ahead of the upcoming midterms. The administrative logic was that standard paper envelopes dropped into blue street boxes represent an existential threat to democratic integrity. Fortunately, the judicial branch intervened, though from a German perspective or even a European perspective, the entire debate over mail-in ballot delivery remains fascinating. In Germany, our postal service operates with such methodical slowness that if you mail a ballot in August, it generally gets counted during the following decade's election cycle anyway, providing structural security through pure administrative delay. Just kidding, though. And finally, let us send our warm congratulations to the state of New Mexico. On August 7th, a state judge ordered Meta, the parent company of Facebook and Instagram, to pay $567 million to address youth mental health and child safety concerns on their platforms. And this comes directly on top of a $375 million jury award from earlier this spring, meaning Mark Zuckerberg's corporate empire now owes the state of New Mexico nearly $1 billion. And to put that in perspective, New Mexico's entire annual operating budget is relatively modest, meaning tax executives are now single-handedly financing every public road, water pipe, and agriculture project in the region for the foreseeable future. Teenagers spend 10 hours a day scrolling through feeds, experience existential dread, and in return, Silicon Valley builds the state highway system. It is the poetic circle of modern digital feudalism. And when we sit back in Germany and observe the last 7 days of American governance, it's easy to feel a sense of comfortable European detachment. We look at the vaccine rollbacks, the cancelled ICE reports, the pillow executives arguing with voting software, and the UFO pitches on presidential aircraft, and we shake our head at the chaotic spectacle. We take comfort in our strict regulatory frameworks, complex multi-party coalitions, and endless stacks of paperwork. But the uncomfortable reality that observers outside the United States often forget is that the superpower across the ocean is not merely a government. It's an economic driver and cultural engine wrapped in an unfiltered reality television production. When Washington decides to stop publishing climate metrics, the Arctic ice does not stop melting just because it was excluded from a public document. When health guidelines are rewritten on a whim, global medical standards feel the structural shockwaves. And when primary candidates routinely reject the outcome of basic vote tallies, the entire foundation of Western constitutional democracy takes another bruised step backward. So, as we conclude this wild week of August 2026, we have learned that science is entirely optional. The climate is perfectly fine as long as you refrain from printing the data. Losing an election by 30 points just means the machine was feeling hostile, and cosmic visitors might be receiving a formal welcome from the presidential podium before the month is out. It's simply business as usual in the land of the free and the ultimate generator of endless global content. So keep your eyes open, sort your household waste, stay sane, and remember that no matter how chaotic your own week was, at least you did not have to stand at a podium and explain to the international press why the North Pole was legally removed from the map. I'll see you in the next one. Until the next round.